there was a great battle on the banks of the river Aidan. Athelfrith, that most powerful Northumbrian warlord, was cut down by Edwin on the banks of that river. Athelfrith the Twister, who roamed this land, bringing kingdoms to their knees, on that day met his own death. And it was a storm of victorious men who headed north, nearly as fast as the wind, to claim the empty throne of Bamburgh. There was one who was faster still, the loyal messenger of that Saxon queen. When she heard the news that her husband had been killed, and by her own brother, Edwin, she knew that her sons, her young boys, were all that stood between him and his aspirations to be king of Northumbria, and that they were no longer safe. All you who gather here today beneath the great walls of Bamburgh Castle, have pity on Queen Acca as she hears the news of her husband's death, and as she must fly from Northumbria as a refugee on the rocky road to the three kingdoms.
Edwin! Edwin! You have killed my husband! You have made me a widow and killed me and my children. You promised us kindness, but I do not trust you. So now we are refugees. Will we find welcome at Breguet?
Who knocks at the fortress of Carlisle, fortress of the lords of Breguet?
It is Queen Acca from Bamburgh. We are desperate. Edwin is going to kill us. Please give us sanctuary.
My lady Acca, Queen of Northumbria, we have heard of your terrible plight and have great sympathy for you and your children, but we cannot give you sanctuary here. We are not strong enough here to resist the greater power of Edwin the Mighty, who is bent on killing your sons. My lady, go deeper into the north, quickly. Go with our blessing, but in haste, before Edwin finds you here. Go!
Oh, many days we have been on this road. Maybe we will even die on this road. I taste panic and fear. With every step there is fear in the air, fear in the earth, and fear in the rain. Perhaps the people at the Rock of Dunbarton will give us shelter.
Who knocks at the strong fortress of the Rock of Dunbarton? Fortress of the kings of the Strathclyde Britons?
It is Queen Acca from Bamburgh. We are desperate. Edwin is going to kill us. Please give us shelter.
How dare you! How dare you come here to seek refuge from us? You, wife of the tyrant murderer Ethelfrith the Twister, your husband broke the treaties, murdered our people, and stole our gold. How dare you! You are very lucky, Saxon queen, that we do not put you and your little whelps to the sword here at Dunbarton. This in our clemency we will not do, but be gone, vanquished queen, queen no more.
You are hard-hearted. We brush the dust from our feet as we leave indoors. And if my children die there, that will be on your hands. I will not forget.
Ha! And so Acca, like so many widows of war, before and since, went from door women's hearts were hard as flint. Her last chance was to head further north and trust swelling tides and throw herself on the mercy of a distant kinsman, King Oswald.
Now my heart trembles in fear as I approach these gates. He is my kinsman, but my husband has done much harm here. Dare I do it? Dare I throw myself on the mercy of King Oswald? Dare I trust in the kinship of blood? Oh, gods! Oh, Woden! My children, forgive me!
And the door opens. Falcha Aidan, Bamburgh in Northumbria, Falcha Oswald Eswi Evan. Adoras a talavor foscal to who he is a clan. Higavishcha. And the doorman of Dalriga welcomed Aka in his own tongue. It sounded strange to her, but he said, "Welcome, little Oswald, to Oswald." And he led them through the great door of the fortress and down into the chamber of the king, who sat in council, waiting to decide what to do with this family of refugees. My lord, consider that this woman is the mother of the rightful heir of Northumbria, and that their uncle Edwin wishes them dead. You do not wish, nor are we able, to make an enemy of such a powerful warlord. Moreover, her husband, Ethelfrith, twisted, heaped dishonor upon our people, and left many of them dead. Will you give sanctuary to our persecutors, my lord?
Remember, my lord, that although Aka's husband killed your dear brothers, I urge you to move beyond personal grievance and remember the prophecy of St. Columcille himself. He said that one who will arise would give the Greeks a mighty foe and will bring a new kind of peace to the people of Britain. Remember why you sit on the throne. It is the blessing of the dove that gives rise and fall to kings. Look at this young lad, Oswald. Look at the pride and the bravery in his eyes. He longs to grow up and become a man.
We cannot afford to pay too much heed to the niceties and pieties of the old men of Iona, my lord, who would see us risk utter ruin at the hand of the enemy who pursues them. And consider, the battle of Hazelsong remains a stain on the honour of this hall, my lord. The fates have delivered them straight into your hands. Take your vengeance.
Have faith. Hold fast to the true way that you follow. The way of the dove, not that of the wolf. Evil deeds arise from the divider within us. Do not feed this Satan, this blamer of our brothers and sisters. For when he is dead, there is no longer any space for him, and we are free
you want revenge, you take my sword and cut the child in half.
No!
And give one half to me and one to his weeping mother.
My lord, I cannot.
Indeed. You want another to stain their hands and their soul for the sake of pride and vengeance. The great Columcille told us the Saviour is to be found within, and I am listening to this source. Do not waste your soul and your time with division. Of any sort, for your own judgment will judge you. I heed the counsel of Brother Aidan and Columcille in this. Come, Acker. You must be exhausted. Be afraid no more. Your blood is as my blood. You are home now. I will raise your children as my own. Take away this sword. The law of steel bends to the higher power of peace.
Oswald, in his boyhood, was drawn to a local lad named Thunderson, for the god whose thunder rumbled out of the clear blue sky on the day he was born. They grew together, swam and wrestled, fought with sword and spear cut from hedgerow hazel. These youngsters did not even speak the same language when they met, but parried words between them as they learned from each other. New tongues.
They grew in height and breadth of shoulder. Play was turned to training. Hazel sticks became swords of steel, and gangplanks became the discipline of the shield wall. Thrust, cut, block, parry, until hardened muscles remembered and repeated, and thought gave way to instinct. Leadership came naturally to Oswald, and with grace, and Thunderson stood ever by him, the two bound by deep friendship and loyalty. Among the holy monks on the island of Iona, their spirits were nourished with the words of the Christ God. And the truth within them stood as a map and guide to Oswald. A blazing course calling for him to set his feet upon.
In the war bands of Dalriada, they met their first combat. They stood in the shield wall, strode amongst the clatter of weapons and bellows of men, and saw their foes and comrades cut down, the blood that was their lives soaking the soil. Oswald danced through combat, his flashing and flickering silver sand blade, twisting and scything through the air and through those who stood against him. His sword caught and seemed to capture the sun's light along its length. From this, Oswald gained the name Whiteblade, the dancing wielder of gleaming steel that shone by the grace of the sun and of God. Thunderson ever beside him. Their lives assumed a rhythm of riding out to war, of study, of prayer, of feasting, of song, and giving gifts in the mead hall. He knew the contentment of a young man among his fellows.
In the southlands of Northumbria, a thing of wild desperation was stirring. Cadwallon of Gwynedd, tormented by Edwin's hounding, was bringing battle to the Northumbrian king. With the pagan Penda as ally, he ground and trampled his bloody way across the land, determined to expunge the Saxon scourge from the earth that Arthur had fought to free. He met Edwin at Hatfield Chase, did not slow his advance, but thundered through and over the warriors of Northumbria, howling and singing songs of slaughter. The men of Cadwallon and those of Penda shattered the Saxon shields and the men that bore them. Fear like a hot wind swept through the Saxon ranks. They turned and fled. Edwin stood fast, facing the charging Cadwallon, and was cut down. His son beside him. The two reduced to shapeless red in a frenzy of blades.
Cadwallon, bloody and panting, paused in his grim work. He had killed a king. Perhaps he had expected the fire that burned within him to be dampened by the royal blood in which he had bathed. It was not. The heat of it blazed fiercer and hissed all the louder for Saxon blood. He stood, cleaned and sheathed his sword, gathered his men. They moved north.
Can you hear that noise, Merlin? Yes. Yes, Merlin. Do you know what it is? It's the sound of kingdoms rising and falling. The sound of the stag at bay turning on the hounds. The dragon of the Britons riding out from the mountains of Cymru. Like a river in spate, they are borne forth on the torrent of their bloody victory over the Saxon king. Around their campfires at night, they hear the voices of their warrior ancestors singing to them in the wind through the oak leaves. Boudica! 100,000 at her back. There is a light in the east. Andrask. This land of Northumberland, where for so many years the kings and queens of the Britons ruled, even when the power of the legions hung over the land like an eagle's eye, they kept that flame alight for centuries. But then the women and men of Woden and Thor, with spears and saxes that had never known submission to Rome, came and took it from them, forced them over the Pennines into the hill country and the hungry lands like crows in flight. And now, led by this one Hadwallon, they are coming to take it back from them, to snuff out like votive candles the young lives of the athletes, the princes of the Saxon line. And I have seen so much already, so much of war and unkindness, my heart is breaking. Everywhere I see the old ways are being lost, and amongst Christian or pagan, there are few who know my name now, who can see with a strong eye that sees in the dark. And everywhere I see the threads being lost. It's right here at the edge of the wood. Look how they rush past it, onwards into the smoke. How I wish I could give it to them the old way. Sometimes a salmon swims down to the bottom of the deep pool and never comes back up. Merlin, they are coming. They'll take you from within, hide in the woods like a ragged beast. That's all the world knows now. Mournful music and bird song.
see through the clouds. They've gone north. Killing and burning to the land of the Northumbrians. Ancient hall of Ardgefren burned to ashes. Oswald's brother, Eanfrith, came down from Pictland with a peace offering for Cadwallon. Was slaughtered like an animal. Word crossed the sea. Word crossed the sea. Crossed to the Isle of Iona and found Oswald praying in the church upon Gilly. A house of peace.
So word travels north and finds the young Oswald and his true friend Funison praying in the chapel, side by side, their faces stark in candlelight. And Father Aidan comes in and says to him, Oswald, my son, your brother is dead, slain by the hand of Cadwallon. And the words plunge into the pool of his heart and meet there old griefs and old wounds and the bitterness of exile. Had I but been there by my brother's side in the kingdom where I was born as I feel I should. Such regret. But Aidan says to him, my son, you have long known that the time might come that you would come out of your exile here among us in Iona and return to Northumberland to win the kingdom of your birth. That time has come and you must go. But the young prince's heart is full of doubt. Is he truly to win a kingdom he hasn't seen in 17 long winters? Would anyone there rally to his banner, or is it folly and madness, a hopeless dream? But Aidan, strong, wise, kind Father Aidan, puts his arm around the lad and says, my son, come back, you forget yourself. Listen. Listen to the silence of the chapel, the flickering of the candles and the wind and the rafters and the waves rising and falling in the night. Come back. All you need is within you. The destiny of your birthright was foreseen long, long ago by Columcille, Saint Columcille, the founder of our monastery, in dreams of prophecy. You must reach for this destiny and return to the kingdom of your birth. The young Etheling's mind grows clear and swift and sudden as a comet in the sky. Everything is changed and he is ready. He is ready to regain that kingdom of his birth, and he calls out to his friend, Funison, Funison, make ready, gather the war band, get the provisions, gather the arms. A fire has risen up in his heart, burning all that is ready to pass away and leaving the shining path of a destiny that his soul leaps to tread. And it is not long before they are saying their prayers of farewell in the darkness of the chapel and clasping old friends in tears of farewell. And they are sailing out under a night of burning stars over the sound of Iona.
coming south with his army, sailing up the steep road of the Solway, and they have alighted at Port Carlisle in the kingdom of Reged. And in that land they are given horses. Borne on those swift steeds, they are flying east along the old Roman way, the Staingate, east to Benicia. And they have risen to that place that we now call Heavenfield, close to the crumbling wall of Rome, carved into the land long ago by a conqueror in his pride. And in that place they spend the night. Now here in Bamburgh, a great blacksmith, steeped in the mysteries of his art, was working at his forge. Who knows how he knew that the time had come to make a sword for his lord Oswald. Labouring day and night, the bellows roar as he swings his heavy hammer with a rhythmic beat and blow. The burning sparks fly like chaff on the threshing floor, and the villagers run through the door to see his body heave and sway as he brings his might to bear upon a deed that may win a kingdom for a king. The first blade forged by the old master was a rare thing, fit for anything in the king's house. Yet though the edge was keen, something was wrong. He could tell that the iron wasn't pure and that it might fail at a desperate moment. This blade could win a battle, but not a kingdom of prophecy. And so the smith set to work on the second blade. And he called to the spirits of the teachers of his boyhood, those who had helped him forge the metal of his life. And when he had finished, he stood before a blade that his teachers would have called perfect. And yet still he knew something was missing. Not the deadly keenness of the blade, or the strength of the handle, or the trueness of the iron, but something he had never been told about, something that even his teachers did not know. So the smith surrendered himself utterly, and like a holy man, leaving everything behind and setting his coracle to the dark waves, he began to forge the third blade. As he worked, he began to fold into the metal the songs of his ancestors and the songs of his old gods, the pagan prayers of his grandmother, the prayers in all the languages of Albion, the British tongues, the English of Venetia, and the ocean songs of the gales in the west. He folded them in. He folded in the limitless dreams of the people of the land, the rain and the snow, and the earth and the fog that comes in off the North Sea. He folded those in, folded them into the heat of his forge, great tides of grief and longing. He folded into that blade as he worked through the night. He folded in the cries of the wolf and the owl, and the strength of the stag and the light of the stars. And as the night wore on, a stillness settled over him, and nothing could be heard but the breathing of the man and the breathing of the bellows and the cooling of the iron. His eyes glowed like the forge, and nothing could be heard. And when at last he stepped back to behold the sword that emerged from the forge, the sword that would become to be known as Whiteblade, he knew he had reached the very pinnacle of his life. Then, mad with prophecy and following the promptings of the moon and the stars, the smith set out into the dark night, seeking his lord Oswald, the Appling of Northumbria. In his tent, on the eve of battle, Oswald saw himself in an open field with a great ash tree before him. In the tree there was a large raven with a silver eye and a white dove that glowed with a light both welcoming. Then a shadow fell over that great company of men sleeping there in the meadow, and the shadow formed itself into a man. It was Saint Columba, with his hand raised. "Greetings, Oswald of the Edens," he said. "Do not be afraid. You have been anointed for this destiny long before you were born. Tomorrow you shall have victory over your enemies. Blessed son, you have nothing to fear. Christ will bring you the victory, and the government of peace will be on your shoulders." Then the shadow dissolved, and the old man was gone, and Oswald fell into a deep and peaceful sleep. He woke to find himself in the stillness of the breaking dawn, and in that dawn, the smith at last reached Heavenheath. Full of years and full of iron, and with the sound of the anvil still ringing in his ears, he brought the sword in his sinewy hands to the door of Oswald's tent. Extending the muscles of his brawny arms, strong as iron bands, he hands the gleaming sword to Oswald, the Whiteblade. It was still dark and quiet as they met at the flaming forge of life, where fortunes are wrought, where iron and blood meet in burning deeds. And in the meadow at Heavenfield, Oswald moves like a dancer in the first glimmerings of the morning light. The virgin blade makes an accomplice of the air as it slices and slants, glowing and flickering in the pale light. Finally, he holds the sword aloft, the white blade, which catches the light like a hunting arrow. Then he knows what he must do. The sword is a symbol, and the dream a prophecy, and a heat he has never known before is rising from his center and singing through his blood. It is time. "Son, he cries, "get the warriors ready! We must prepare." But before they leave, before they give themselves to the fire of war and the fury of armies, Oswald raises a cross made from great ash boughs, under which all of the men would pray. And he lifts the might of that giant cross without any help, refusing all help. For some of them, under that cross, it was a world tree, the world tree of Woden, hung with raven feathers, coloured fabric, and oak leaves. But for others, it was the cross of Christ, from which the heart of all goodness entered the world. But all of those who prayed beneath that cross, whatever their faith, were praying for grace, praying for victory, and praying that they would see their loved ones again.
So they mounted their steeds before dawn. Those men come from Iona, men who were sainted, blessed in heart and mind. Men who now fought for their Lord, who and fell upon Cadwallon and his band like wolves where they lay sleeping in grass. The surprise they gave the sleeping Britons was absolute, and most of them were cut down whilst they fumbled with their weapons. Cadwallon and those of his men still with him attempted flight up the valley of the Devil's Water. I could hear them coming higher and higher up the valley, into the lonely woods, the cries of battle like echoes from a dream. But one by one, the men around Cadwallon fell, until he flew alone and silent through the woods, just like a hunted beast.
years are spent, and he is cracked and hollow with grief. There he is, gazing upwards, his eyes wild. He's leaving, going deeper, deeper into the wood. He's leaving this world, seeking his people. And he asks himself, where have they gone? The beautiful ones in the fountain, and in the trees, and in the sunlight, they have vanished, and all things are fading, fading from this world. And in his grief, shuddering with sorrow, he finds in the depths of that wood a green woman, the lady of the forest. And she steps up and lays her tender hands upon him. Can you see that in the glade, in the light of the glade? She lays her hands upon him and says, Merlin, do not grieve. Oh, Merlin, my dear brother, please take heart. You have suffered so much. Come, dear Merlin, wise Merlin, Merlin, despair not. He falls and says, I cannot, my sister, I cannot go on. I have seen too much. I am cracked and broken with grief, and I want to die. I want to go home and die. But she will not leave. The lady of the wood will not leave Merlin alone with his sorrow and his broken heart. She touches him, and she lifts him up again. Beloved Merlin, this world is dark and riven with sorrow and grief, but you must go on. You must go on and keep the flame alight, for the time will come when you are called upon again to come to the aid of this land and all of its people. Much will endure, Merlin. Much will endure. Take heart. Let us walk and rest. Let us rest in the glade and feel the kiss of the ancient rain pass. Come, Merlin, my dear, be at peace. Allow yourself to rest.
Oswald, my beloved son.
My greetings to all you who are gathered here, people of Deir, of Reged, of Nisi, Dalrir, the land lands beyond the waves, people of many kingdoms and countries, welcome. We are well met here in Bamburgh, on hallowed land, the ancient house of my people. Had one of the Britons, that wild stag, who laid waste to this land and burned the hall of Ardgefrin, is vanquished, his host scattered and slain, and those that remained alive fleeing back to Gwynedd with the tidings of our victory. We gather to celebrate this triumph, but my heart is still clouded with grief. Our land has been harrowed by woe and death. Ghosts are abroad in our kingdom. They wander on the stony roads and in the spoiled fields of summer with hollow eyes, and up on the heights we hear them howl with the wind of the heath. And I say, enough! Enough of madness and death! We bear no grievance to the people of Gwynedd. I do not believe I came here to bring more death and famine and widow's tears into this world. We must begin to dream of a new kingdom. I was born here, in Venetia, at Bamburgh, and yet, whilst scarcely more than a child, I was forced to flee in terror and face the bitter fortunes of those who wander from place to place, seeking whatever refuge they can find in this hard, harsh world. And yet, where did we receive refuge? But among the Gaels of Dalriad, the very people whom my own father hounded without mercy. Mysterious and miraculous is the mercy of the heart, endless, passionate, divine one. So let this newly risen kingdom be a place where the doors are always open to strangers. Let this be a kind and a wise and a brave and a generous place. May the wisdoms of many peoples, of Gaels, of English, of Picts, of those who dwell beyond the waves, all find a home in this fertile and fortunate land. May we honour the old and the new ways. May we remember the ancient shrines and the old gods of the rivers and the hills, even as our great reverend brother Aidan of Iona in the west builds a new church here to the glory of God. On Lindisfarne, here on the eastern shores of our blessed born of the union of dear Venetia. May this kingdom be a place where the rivers of the world.
Oh, my beloved son, put all sorrow out of your heart now. We are met here, and who knows what the future holds for any of us. But we find ourselves in a golden moment. So let the tables be set for feasting, let the drinking horns be filled to overflowing, let the bards tell of the old stories of ancient heroes and dreams of heroes not yet born. Let the flute begin and let the fiddler begin, let the drum play its drum, and let's rejoice.
All right, listen, my brother in spirit, what tune should we play?
Amazing dance.
2, 3.
as we finished telling our story, just before we leave tonight, I just wanted to say a few words about the lives of the real people who inspired this story. So in recent times, some skeletons have been found on the dunes beneath Bamburgh Castle. And it was a burial ground for many people from foreign lands and Irish, basically beyond this area, who lived at the time of Oswald, and they were buried there looking out to sea. And they have been reburied here, in this church, this very church that was founded by Aidan all those years ago. So we just want to honour them, and really it is them who has inspired this story. Yeah, we dedicate this piece to them tonight. I hope you enjoyed